Have you ever noticed how one painful experience can quietly shape every relationship that follows? One betrayal, one rejection, or one heartbreak has the power to convince you that opening up is dangerous. Without realizing it, you begin building emotional walls, believing they're protecting you. In reality, those same walls are preventing you from experiencing the connection you're searching for. The hardest part about healing isn't forgetting what happened. It's refusing to let the past dictate who you become. Every time you assume the next person will hurt you simply because someone else did, you're allowing an old experience to control your future. The pain may have happened years ago, but its influence is still making decisions for you. Real strength isn't pretending you were never hurt. It's finding the courage to be vulnerable again despite knowing there's always a chance you'll experience disappointment. That's the price of every meaningful relationship. There are no guarantees, only opportunities to trust again. If you choose to open your heart and things don't work out, you haven't failed. You've proven something much more important. You refuse to let fear become the author of your life. The people who hurt you no longer have control because you didn't allow their actions to change your ability to love. Being emotionally available is one of the deepest human needs we possess. From childhood, we're wired to seek connection, understanding, and acceptance. When we completely shut ourselves off, the damage extends far beyond romance. It begins affecting friendships, family relationships, professional opportunities, and even the way we see ourselves. That's why healing should always come before rushing into another relationship. Give yourself enough time to process what happened instead of carrying unresolved pain into someone else's life. Healing isn't about becoming perfect. It's about making sure your wounds no longer make your decisions. Once you've regained that emotional balance, there's another lesson that becomes incredibly important. Stop judging people by appearances alone. Charm is easy to imitate, confidence can be performed. Attractive words often hide unattractive intentions. Character, however, cannot be faked forever. Pay attention to how people behave when life becomes difficult. Watch how they respond when plans fall apart, when they're stressed, or when they don't get what they want. Those moments reveal far more about a person's true nature than their best first impression ever could. One of the clearest signs of strong character is the ability to accept criticism. Nobody enjoys hearing they've made a mistake, but emotionally mature people are willing to listen without turning every disagreement into a personal attack. They don't become defensive, manipulative, or passive aggressive simply because someone offered honest feedback. Think about how impossible a healthy relationship becomes if one person can never admit they're wrong. Every conversation eventually turns into an argument. Every disagreement becomes a battle. Instead of solving problems together, both people start protecting their egos. Healthy relationships aren't built by two perfect people. They're built by two individuals willing to grow. Growth only happens when someone can acknowledge imperfections without feeling threatened by them. It's also worth paying attention to how someone handles pressure. Anyone can appear kind when life is comfortable. The real test comes during stressful moments. Do they remain respectful? Do they stay calm enough to communicate? Or do they blame everyone around them for every inconvenience? Another quality that's often overlooked is genuine listening. Many people hear words, but very few actually listen. You can tell the difference by what happens after the conversation ends. Do they remember what you shared? Do they ask thoughtful questions? Do they respond in ways that show they truly understood your perspective? Real listening is an act of respect. It tells you that the other person values your thoughts enough to slow down and understand them instead of simply waiting for their turn to speak. When evaluating relationships, spend less time being impressed by appearances and more time observing patterns. Attractive personalities can capture your attention, but consistent character earns your trust. All of these lessons point toward one larger principle. Mastering your own life begins with mastering yourself. Many people spend years trying to control external circumstances while completely ignoring the person making every decision themselves. Without self-awareness, every opinion, every criticism, every trend, and every setback gains the power to influence your emotions. The first step toward real confidence is understanding who you actually are Most people spend their lives absorbing expectations from everywhere around them. Parents have opinions, friends have advice. Social media constantly tells us what success should look like. Society defines what we're supposed to admire, pursue, and become. After years of listening to everyone else, many people reach adulthood without ever asking themselves a simple question: what do I genuinely want? When you don't know the answer, life begins to feel random. You chase careers that don't fit you. You enter relationships for the wrong reasons. You compare yourself to people living completely different lives. Every decision feels uncertain because none of them are anchored in your authentic identity. The moment you begin understanding your own values, strengths, and motivations, something changes. Outside opinions lose their power. Setbacks become easier to recover from. Instead of reacting emotionally to everything happening around you, you start responding with purpose. And that's where real personal power begins, not in controlling the world around you, but in finally understanding the person within you. Self awareness doesn't happen overnight. It's a process that requires honesty, patience, and the willingness to spend time alone with your own thoughts. In today's world, that's becoming increasingly difficult. Every spare moment is filled with notifications, endless scrolling, and other people's opinions. Before you have a chance to understand yourself, someone else is already telling you who you should become. That's why so many people feel lost. They're chasing careers they never truly wanted. They're adopting lifestyles that don't fit them. They're measuring their worth against strangers on social media who are showing only the best moments of their lives. Eventually, they wake up feeling disconnected, not because life has failed them, but because they've never stopped long enough to ask themselves what actually matters. The truth is, you can't build a meaningful future if you don't understand the person building it. Take time to reflect on your past, not to live in it, but to learn from it. Think about the decisions that brought you joy and the ones that left you feeling empty. Look at the relationships that helped you grow and the ones that drained your energy. Every experience leaves behind clues about the kind of person you're becoming. Reflection isn't about regret, it's about clarity. The more clearly you understand yourself, the easier it becomes to control your emotions. Instead of reacting impulsively to every criticism or disappointment, you begin recognizing which situations truly deserve your attention and which ones simply don't. People who lack self awareness often take everything personally. A negative comment ruins their entire day. Someone else's success makes them feel inadequate. Small setbacks convince them they're failing at life. But when you know who you are, outside opinions lose much of their influence. Not every disagreement is an attack. Not every obstacle is a sign that you're on the wrong path. And not every rejection means you're unworthy. This idea has existed for thousands of years. Ancient philosophers repeatedly emphasized one simple principle: before trying to master the world, learn to master yourself. That journey starts by recognizing what makes you different. Every successful person has one thing in common: they stop trying to become copies of someone else. Think about the individuals who leave a lasting impact, whether they're entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, or inventors. None of them built their success by blending into the crowd. They became memorable because they leaned into qualities that only they possessed. Your greatest strength is often hidden inside the very thing you've spent years trying to hide. Maybe you've always thought differently from the people around you. Maybe your interests seem unusual. Maybe you've been told you're too curious, too creative, too ambitious, or too unconventional. Instead of viewing those qualities as weaknesses, consider the possibility that they're pointing you toward your greatest advantage. Originality always looks strange before it becomes valuable. History is full of people who were criticized simply because they refused to follow the familiar path. Their ideas seemed unrealistic, their methods looked unusual, their goals appeared impossible. Yet those same differences eventually became the reason they succeeded. The temptation to imitate others is understandable. Copying feels safe because someone else has already proven it can work. But imitation has limits. Even if you achieve success by copying another person's formula, you'll always remain in their shadow. Real fulfillment comes from building something that's unmistakably your own. Of course, Embracing your uniqueness doesn't guarantee immediate success. In fact, it often creates more uncertainty. People may question your choices. Friends might not understand your direction. Even those closest to you may encourage you to choose a safer path. Moments like these test your confidence. Do you trust your instincts enough to continue, or do you abandon your vision simply because it doesn't make sense to everyone else? The answer to that question often determines whether you spend your life creating something meaningful or merely following expectations. Confidence isn't pretending to know everything, it's believing in your ability to figure things out even when the outcome is uncertain. Many of the world's greatest achievements began with someone defending an idea that almost nobody else believed in. If they had changed course every time someone expressed doubt, their work would never have existed. That doesn't mean ignoring feedback altogether. Wise people listen carefully to criticism, but they also know the difference between constructive advice and fear disguised as concern. Sometimes people discourage your dreams because they're protecting you from failure. Other times they're protecting themselves from seeing you succeed. Learning to recognize that difference is essential. Your path doesn't need universal approval. It only needs your commitment. The journey toward discovering your purpose is rarely straightforward. You may try one career before realizing it isn't right. You might pursue opportunities that teach valuable lessons even if they don't lead to lasting success. None of those experiences are wasted. Every attempt develops skills. Every disappointment teaches resilience. Every setback reveals something you didn't know before. Progress isn't always visible while you're living through it. Looking back, however, you'll often realize that what felt like failure was quietly preparing you for the opportunity that mattered most. The people who eventually accomplish remarkable things aren't always the ones who started with the greatest advantages. More often, they're the ones who refuse to stop learning, refuse to stop adapting, and refuse to give up on becoming the person they knew they could be. And sometimes that's the greatest form of power anyone can possess. One of the biggest misconceptions about success is that the people who achieve extraordinary things always knew exactly where they were going. The truth is often the opposite. Many of the most accomplished individuals spent years feeling lost, changing directions, and questioning whether they were capable of accomplishing anything meaningful. Progress rarely follows a straight line. It's easy to look at someone successful and assume they always had confidence, clarity, and momentum. What we don't see are the countless failed attempts, rejected ideas, and uncertain moments that happened before anyone knew their name. The difference isn't that successful people avoid failure. The difference is that they refuse to let failure become their identity. Too many people experience one setback and immediately conclude they're not talented enough, smart enough, or capable enough. Instead of seeing failure as feedback, they treat it as a final verdict on who they are. That's one of the most dangerous beliefs a person can develop. Every setback carries information. Every disappointment teaches something that success never could. When things work perfectly the first time, there's very little reason to improve. You assume your current approach is good enough because it produced the result you wanted. Failure doesn't allow that illusion. It forces you to examine your weaknesses. It exposes habits that need to change. It reveals skills you haven't developed yet. While success often feeds the ego, failure strengthens character. That's why resilience matters more than perfection. Life will never eliminate obstacles simply because you're determined. Unexpected challenges will always appear. Plans will fall apart. Opportunities will disappear. People will doubt you. Sometimes you'll even doubt yourself. The question isn't whether those moments will arrive. The question is how you'll respond when they do. Some people allow difficult seasons to convince them to quit entirely. Others use those same experiences as fuel to become stronger than they were before. The event may be identical. The response is completely different. Think about every skill you've ever mastered, whether it was learning a language, playing a sport, starting a business, or developing a creative talent. None of those abilities appeared overnight. They were built through repetition, mistakes, adjustments, and persistence. Growth has always required discomfort. Yet, when it comes to our dreams, we often expect immediate success. If the first attempt doesn't work, We assume we're pursuing the wrong path. In reality, mastery demands patience. Every expert was once a beginner who looked inexperienced. Every leader once struggled with uncertainty. Every creator once produced work that nobody noticed. The invisible phase is part of the process. Unfortunately, most people give up during that phase because they mistake a lack of recognition for a lack of progress. They don't realize that the foundation is quietly being built beneath the surface. Consistency often looks unimpressive in the moment. Writing another page, practicing another hour, reading another chapter, improving by 1%, none of those actions seem remarkable on a single day. But repeated over months and years, they create extraordinary results. The challenge is staying committed long enough to experience the payoff. Another obstacle many people face is comparing their beginning to someone else's peak. Social media has made that temptation stronger than ever. You see polished achievements without witnessing the years of struggle that came before them. You compare your first attempt with someone else's 20th year of experience. That comparison is unfair. Instead of measuring yourself against others, measure yourself against the person you were yesterday. Small improvements may not feel dramatic, but they compound over time. Confidence grows the same way. It isn't something you're born with. It's something you earn by repeatedly keeping promises to yourself. Each time you finish what you started, your confidence increases. Each time you overcome something difficult, you gain evidence that you're more capable than you believed. Real confidence isn't loud. It doesn't need constant validation. It's the quiet belief that no matter what happens, you'll find a way forward. Purpose works in a similar way. Many people spend years waiting for a single life-changing moment that suddenly reveals exactly what they're meant to do. Life rarely works that way. Purpose usually becomes clear through action, not waiting. You discover what excites you by trying different things. You discover your strengths by solving difficult problems. You discover your passions by paying attention to the work that energizes you instead of draining you. Clarity follows movement. Waiting for certainty often leads to years of inaction. Taking action creates certainty over time. That's why it's better to begin imperfectly than to spend years preparing for a perfect opportunity that never arrives. You don't need every answer before taking the first step. You simply need enough courage to start. As you continue moving forward, each experience teaches you something new. Some lessons come through success, many more come through failure. Eventually, you realize that every chapter, even the painful ones, was preparing you for the next level of your journey. Looking back, the setbacks that once felt devastating often become the moments you're most grateful for. They forced you to grow. They challenged your assumptions. They developed strengths that comfort never could. The people who build extraordinary lives aren't the ones who avoid hardship. They're the ones who transform hardship into wisdom. They refuse to let disappointment define them. Instead, they use every obstacle as another opportunity to become stronger, wiser, and more prepared for whatever comes next. And that's what separates those who merely dream from those who eventually achieve the life they've always imagined. There's one conversation you should have with yourself more often than almost any other. Time is moving faster than you think. When you're in your early 20s, it feels like you have endless opportunities ahead of you. You tell yourself there's plenty of time to start the business, write the book, build the career, or chase the dream. Months become years, and before you realize it, you've spent a decade waiting for the perfect moment. The truth is that perfect moment rarely arrives. Life doesn't pause while you prepare. Every year that passes quietly becomes another reminder that opportunities don't last forever. This isn't meant to create fear. It's meant to create urgency. Urgency isn't about rushing every decision. It's about understanding that your future is being built by the choices you make today. Every action, every habit, and every hour you invest is shaping the life you'll eventually live. Many people postpone their biggest goals because nobody is forcing them to begin. There isn't a teacher assigning deadlines anymore. No one is standing over your shoulder reminding you to stay focused. For the first time in your life, your future depends almost entirely on your own discipline. That's both exciting and terrifying. Freedom sounds wonderful until you realize it also means complete responsibility. Nobody is coming to rescue you. Nobody is going to hand you the perfect opportunity. You have to create it. That means giving yourself deadlines instead of waiting for someone else to do it. Set a date to launch your project. Commit to learning a new skill before the end of the year. Promise yourself you'll stop talking about your dream and finally begin building it. Without self imposed deadlines, procrastination becomes incredibly comfortable. Weeks turn into months, months become years. Eventually, the dream you once talked about with excitement becomes something you quietly regret never pursuing. Regret is far more painful than failure. Failure teaches. Regret only reminds you of what could have been. This is why action matters so much. You don't need every answer before you begin. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need permission. You simply need to take the first step. Many people avoid action because they're afraid of making mistakes. Ironically, those mistakes are exactly what prepare you for success. Every entrepreneur has launched something that didn't work. Every athlete has lost competitions. Every artist has created work they're embarrassed to show anyone. Failure isn't evidence that you should stop. It's evidence that you're actually trying. The only people who never fail are the ones who never risk anything. Think about every major achievement in history. Behind every breakthrough was someone willing to look inexperienced, someone willing to be criticized, someone willing to continue despite uncertainty. That's the price of growth. The world celebrates finished products. It rarely notices the years of invisible work that made them possible. Success isn't built during moments of applause. It's built during quiet mornings, late nights, repeated practice, and countless moments when quitting would have been easier. That's where resilience is developed.
Yeah.
And resilience is often more valuable than talent. Talent may give you an advantage in the beginning. Resilience keeps you moving when talent alone isn't enough. Another mistake people make is believing that confidence appears before action. In reality, confidence is created by action. Every challenge you overcome becomes evidence that you're capable of handling the next one. Confidence isn't something you wait to feel. It's something you build through experience. This is especially important during difficult seasons. When life becomes unpredictable, many people immediately start searching for excuses. They blame circumstances, they blame the economy, they blame bad timing, they blame other people. While some obstacles are certainly real, constantly focusing on them shifts your attention away from the one thing you can control, your response. The people who accomplish extraordinary things aren't immune to adversity. They simply refuse to let adversity become an excuse. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" they ask, "What can I do with the situation I have?" That single question changes everything. It transforms frustration into creativity. Victimhood becomes responsibility. Problems become opportunities to adapt. History repeatedly shows that some of the greatest innovations emerge during difficult times. Periods of uncertainty force people to think differently. New businesses are created, new skills are developed, entire industries evolve because someone decided to see possibility where others only saw obstacles. You have that same choice. Every setback places two paths in front of you. One path leads toward excuses, the other leads toward growth. Neither path is easy, but only one moves your life forward. The next time fear tells you to wait until you're completely ready, remember something important. Almost nobody feels fully prepared before doing something meaningful. The first speech feels uncomfortable. The first business feels risky. The first video feels awkward. The first investment feels uncertain. That's normal. Progress begins long before confidence catches up. If you wait until fear disappears, you'll spend your life standing still. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision that your goals matter more than your doubts. Every successful person has faced moments where quitting seemed like the easier option. The difference is they kept moving anyway, one small step, one lesson, one improvement at a time. Eventually, those small decisions create extraordinary outcomes, not because they were fearless, but because they refused to let fear become the author of their future. At some point in life, everyone experiences a moment that changes them. It might be a failed business, the loss of someone you love, a serious health challenge, or a dream that suddenly falls apart. In those moments, it feels as though life has singled you out. You begin asking questions that have no easy answers. Why did this happen? Why now? Why me? Those questions are natural, but they rarely move your life forward. A far more powerful question is this us. What can this experience teach me? That single shift changes everything. Every difficult chapter carries a lesson, even if you can't see it immediately. Pain has a strange way of forcing us to grow in areas we would have otherwise ignored. It demands patience. It builds resilience. It teaches gratitude. Most importantly, it reveals strengths you never realized you possessed. Many people spend years trying to avoid discomfort, but growth has never lived inside comfort. Think back to the moments that shaped your character. Chances are they weren't the easiest seasons of your life. They were the moments that challenged you, tested your patience, and forced you to become someone stronger than you were before. Hardship doesn't automatically make someone wiser, reflection does. Two people can experience the exact same setback and leave with completely different outcomes. One becomes bitter, the other becomes better. The difference isn't the event, the difference is the mindset they bring to it. Your attitude acts like a lens through which you see the world. If that lens is focused only on problems, you'll begin noticing obstacles everywhere you look. Every inconvenience feels personal. Every criticism feels like an attack. Every failure feels permanent. Eventually, you convince yourself that life is working against you. But when you deliberately choose a different perspective, something remarkable begins to happen. The obstacles don't disappear. You simply stop allowing them to define your future. Instead of asking why something happened, you begin asking how you can use it. Instead of focusing on what was taken away, you start noticing what still remains. That shift creates momentum. Imagine two people losing the same opportunity. The first spends months complaining about unfair circumstances. The second immediately begins searching for a better opportunity. Months later, one person is still reliving the past while the other has already built a new future. Life often rewards movement. It rarely rewards self-pity. This doesn't mean pretending everything is positive. It doesn't mean ignoring pain or refusing to acknowledge difficult emotions. Real optimism isn't denial. It's the belief that today's struggle doesn't have to become tomorrow's identity. That's an important distinction. You can feel disappointed without giving up. You can grieve without losing hope. You can experience fear without allowing it to make every decision for you. Emotional strength isn't about never feeling negative emotions. It's about refusing to let those emotions become permanent residents in your mind. Another powerful realization comes when you stop comparing your journey to everyone else's. Comparison steals appreciation. Someone will always appear further ahead. Someone will always seem more successful. If your happiness depends on catching everyone else, you'll never feel like you've arrived. Instead, compare yourself to the person you were 1 year ago. Have you learned new skills? Have you become more disciplined? Do you handle stress better? Are you making wiser decisions? That's the comparison that truly matters. Progress isn't measured by perfection, it's measured by growth. One of the greatest habits you can develop is learning to appreciate small victories. People often celebrate only the final destination while ignoring the progress that made it possible. Finishing one chapter, posting your first video, landing your first client, learning one new skill, each small achievement deserves recognition because confidence grows through accumulated evidence. Every promise you keep to yourself strengthens your belief that you can accomplish bigger goals. Eventually, discipline becomes part of your identity. You no longer rely solely on motivation because you've trained yourself to act regardless of how you feel. That's where lasting success begins. Motivation is temporary. Discipline creates consistency. Consistency creates results, and results create confidence. As you continue growing, you'll also notice something interesting. The things that once intimidated you begin feeling normal. Challenges that once seemed impossible become routine. The person you become quietly outgrows the fears that once held you back. That's the reward of continuous growth, not because life becomes easier, but because you become stronger. Perhaps the most important lesson of all is understanding that your story is still being written. One difficult chapter doesn't determine the ending. One mistake doesn't define your future. One rejection doesn't erase your potential. As long as you're willing to keep learning, adapting, and moving forward, your next chapter can always be better than the last. Every day offers another opportunity to improve your mindset, another chance to sharpen your skills, another chance to become a little wiser than yesterday. The people we admire most didn't become extraordinary because life was easy for them. They became extraordinary because they refused to surrender when life became difficult. They chose growth over comfort, responsibility over excuses, action over fear, hope over doubt. You have the same choice. No matter where you are today, no matter how many setbacks you've experienced, or how impossible your goals may seem, your future is not decided by your past. It's decided by what you choose to do next. So stop waiting for perfect timing. Stop allowing fear to make your decisions. Stop underestimating the person you're capable of becoming. Take one step today. Learn one lesson tomorrow. Repeat the process every single day because remarkable lives aren't built through one extraordinary moment. They're built through thousands of ordinary decisions made with extraordinary consistency. And one day, you'll look back and realize that the challenges you once wished would disappear became the very experiences that shaped the person you were always meant to become.